Hi, this is Dr. Ty. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow us on social media to get access to more inspirational content, because so amazing is possible and we want you to claim it.
My story begins in the womb. My mom was a 19-year-old college freshman at Oakwood College when she found herself pregnant with me. Instead of coming home to Bermuda with a degree, she would have to come back home with me. And she said the pressure of that perhaps led her to an abortion clinic. And it was in that abortion clinic in Huntsville, Alabama, that she felt me move for the first time. In fact, her words were that she felt a flutter in her stomach and knew she couldn't do it. She came home to the disappointment of individuals who had hoped for so much more, and I became her degree. She majored in me. She majored in my life. At about 4 or 5 years old, we moved to Orgeron Road in Paget, where I began my elementary school education and where I was exposed to a neighborhood and a community of folks who helped to nurture me into the man I am today.
I want you to think about, what are you exposing yourself to? Some of you are exposed to a lot of stuff on YouTube. You're exposed to a lot of things that may be negative. And what you watch is what you become, so be careful. But the power of positive exposure is also vital, right? They say that you need to spend about 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. So what are you spending 10,000 hours doing? Some of you are an expert in TV. No, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but how can you transition or transfer what you're watching into something that could actually help you or your community?
You know, I think the career of being a professor and an author really found me. And I think about my mom, buying scholastic books for me in elementary school, and my dad, obviously. They instilled in me the power and importance of words and writing.
Forgive me if I'm not your traditional, academic. I can't be. And I don't try to be. In my university, I can't, because their story is not my story. And your story is not their story. So I need you to begin to think about your story, the pain. I write based on the pain I've actually even overcome.
And so I always really had two options. Sport was definitely my passion, and I had desires to play in the largest cricket match in Bermuda called Cup match, and I was pretty gifted in soccer as well and track. But I had another pathway of academics that also gave me options, and so I think really this profession of writing really found me, because I recognized that was another mechanism where I could express myself. I recently wrote and authored Crossing Brothas, Black Males Navigating Race, Place, and Complex Space, my third book. And I think it's important because it makes connections between global conversations that are often siloed in nationalistic discourse.
I've come to realize that there's power in our journeys, in our stories. Did you realize that? Folks, get excited about book projects like this, and I'm excited to share with Bermuda tomorrow on Tuesday at 6:30 at Brown & Co. But the reality is, this book is really not about me. In fact, as I wrote my dissertation, on which this book is based, folks get really excited about words, like big words, like community-based pedagogical spaces, right? Oh, Dr. Douglas, that's so deep. But the reality is, I just repackaged my story into language that they appreciated. So the book is really just talking about spaces like the barbershop, the church, the neighborhood, the sports club. Spaces that have made a difference in my life, even as schools were important. I recognized there was power in the village.
A lot of times we're dealing with issues that have international implications. So the things that I'm seeing and experiencing in Bermuda are related to what I see in Ferguson and related to what I see in South Africa. And so I think my book is vital because it allows us to triangulate the conversations and to really begin to push deeper, to think about systems and to think about opportunities and to think about answers that may be found in shores within and outside of the borders that we occupy.
You come from a country that, even though we may make up a small percentage of the population, you're making an impact globally. There are hurricanes that are all around the Caribbean, and some countries have to be a bit more concerned than you do. You know why? Because your ancestors, they built strong buildings, strong houses, with roofs that are white, They have limestone on them that neutralize the acidity of the water and goes into a tank system that you can now get water from.
You know, some people say you can never really go home, you know. So while I've come home physically to Bermuda, a place where I was born and raised, it's not the same place that it was. You know, it's familiar, but like I said in the trailer, all too foreign perhaps. This is my grandfather's house. He's deceased now, but he was a master carpenter and this is where he lived. Some of his tools perhaps still outside here, a little rusty. You know, my relationship with my grandfather was interesting. I didn't like him growing up because I didn't understand him. He was a dark-skinned carpenter, black male who didn't share his skill sets with me, so I thought. And he's important in my story because I really began to study and think about masculinity and manhood in a different way when I understood that he was a broken man who had pain because of his schooling experience, because he wasn't given access to the only black academic high school because his parents were not married when he was born and he was deemed illegitimate. And so when I understood that the brokenness of his educational journey impacted how he could even relate to his family, I had another level of empathy for men in particular who struggle to communicate their love and perhaps don't even value the skills that they do have, perhaps because they weren't affirmed by the skills or the mechanisms within the schoolhouse. So my passion for community-based education, you know, looks like stuff like this. I want people to take from my story the reality that it doesn't really matter how you began. In fact, and I speak for those who maybe have, not just physically, but may feel that they have aborted dreams. You know, there are parents who are perhaps watching this who may recognize that they've made some decisions in their past that they're ashamed of, and I come to share that there is no shame.
How are you? Thank you for being here. I'm excited and humbled to spend this time with you, to share a project that frankly is not mine, it's actually yours. I thought it was appropriate to come back to Bermuda to give it to the people. But I just want to share something with you that will help you as you read the book. Again, this book is a border crossing project. It's based on an award-winning dissertation, but I've sought to distill it, if you will, to make it relevant to everybody. But you should know, if you have a young son, perhaps you might want to get him to start initially with chapter 5, which really gets into the voices of the young man. So I want to read this to you. It says here, this poem was written after I observed that the front page newspaper story about a black Bermudian male was printed on the same day his sibling's funeral notice, and I call him Brother Blue Collar Worker, or BCW, finally showed up on the back pages of the newspaper. This tribute is to every man, especially those whose stories, dreams, and brilliance have been silenced by lonely tombstones and faded flowers. And to our master tradesmen who as teenage boys often had to surrender academic aspirations and childhood fun in order to become the primary breadwinner. I want to charge you and challenge you. You are rare and exceptional, Bermuda. You are rare and exceptional, black males, white males, you know, white women of color, white women, whomever you are in this room, you're rare and exceptional. That there is a human fabric that underlines. I have a passion for humanity at this point. I'm sick of seeing people hurt. And I want to challenge you to be rare and exceptional because you always have been. And that's what I heard in my spirit. Not just because there was some, hyperbole or some line in my brain. Because the story is this. I didn't have crystal stare and life wasn't always easy. In fact, I shouldn't be here. You looking at real exception.
The content of his message this morning, totally inspirational, totally motivational, totally relevant and on time.
I was really inspired by his whole ideology of research, me search, and we search. And I thought that that was a really good concept, and I want to take that back onto my campus and also my org and kind of reflect on how do our stories connect with one another as black males, particularly in higher education.